what is the structure going to be like for the workshop?
There are people who have various levels of readiness. So the team or the entrepreneur who is giving the requirements may have a fairly good idea, in which case he might even have written a document, or he might have a working prototype, or he might have also built the system to a level. So in which case he doesn't have to go through all the steps that are there. So as I described earlier, there are several steps through which you go to decompose the requirement at a high level to a user story that is estimatable and testable. Now, let's say there are 8 or 10 steps, and somebody who has already taken, let's say, 4 or 5 of those steps, that you don't need to start from number 1, but you can actually jump to number 5, right? So the structure is very flexible. There are steps that are given, but it is not mandatory that each one of you has to go through those steps. There are some of the entrepreneurs or startups who are at a very early stage and they need to go through all the stages. But there are some enterprise clients who might not need to go through all the stages. They may have, for example, I just tell an example here. So there are techniques wherein you are able to tease out what are the user personas and what is the journey of each user persona and what are the events along the journey of the user persona. So for which we use techniques like jobs to be done, event storming, user personas and all that. So there are a lot of these questions that are generated and they need to be answered. Now, if you already have all these things in place, you already have user personas, you already have thought through what are the events and what are the steps along the journey of the user as he is using the application, you don't need to go through this. But if you're starting absolutely fresh, you need to go through these steps. The structure is there, but it has to be utilized very thoughtfully. So you don't have to go through each step. You can start, and at times you can start and skip a few steps. So you may start at 1 and 2 and skip 3 and 4 because it might not be relevant. For example, we have a lot of material that we cover in a process wherein we describe the user persona in detail, which is required if your application is very user centric and where you have a lot of interface where user interaction happens and user experience is important, in which case it is important for you to spend that time on defining and building that user persona. But let's say you are building an application in which there is no user interface. It is entirely happening as an API in the background, in which case you don't need to define that user persona to that detailed level. So these are some of the calls which the individual who is undergoing this workshop has to take, that what is applicable for his specific case and what is not. So the wonder of this structure is that it is flexible, that you can pick what you want and leave what you don't. That's how this is structured.
Okay. And last but not the least, I'd like to know what are the prerequisites for this workshop?
As I described, you'll of course need a laptop, internet, and you'll require ChatGPT 4.0. It's really good. So if you really want to derive the maximum value out of this, you will need to use ChatGPT 4.0. But let's say if you don't have the budget, it takes $20 a month, which is not a lot if you're building something. But let's say if you don't want to spend that much, you can try with ChatGPT 3.5, which is free.
Thank you very much, Vinayak.
Welcome.